Hi and welcome to Z Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Z Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
You are listening to Z Games, your favourite gaming radio show, and mine. We are coming to you live from the 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane. You might be listening to us on the Community Radio Network around Australia. I am Lee, and joining me in the studio tonight, this episode, we have Razor.
Hey!
Who doesn't have his beard anymore.
No.
Sean, who doesn't have a beard yet.
Hello.
He's our intern. He's very impish. You'll enjoy his...
Impish?
Yeah.
Dude,
Thanks.
That's harsh.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's impish. He's
What,
like...
what if I have to disagree with that? What if I don't like it?
No, well, you can't. I'm sorry. We have seniority here, like by a massive margin, because we are all old people. Speaking of,
Hey.
Jody,
Hang
Dodged a
on.
bullet there, didn't you?
Jody Macregor.
Hello, Lee.
Hi, Jody. How's it going?
Good.
Yes, Ms. Candi Payne.
Yes, hi.
Yes.
Younger.
Yeah.
Younger.
Younger than us.
Thank you.
A little bit impish. Just a smidge.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes. We have a radio program about video games, Razor.
Yes. So this week we'll be hearing an interview with Alex Hutchison, who is the Australian-born creative director of Far Cry 4. If you remember back to last week, Lee and I had some good things to say about Far Cry 4. We had a lot of crazy co-op adventures. So we'll be hearing from him, courtesy of 2RR's Big Head Mode. And also, Sean, our little minion here, he's been playing World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, the latest expansion for the huge daddy of all MMOs.
Yeah, it's just celebrated. World of Warcraft has just celebrated its 10th anniversary, so they've just been having a few events in game, and I thought it was the perfect time to pick it up. And yeah, it's definitely an experience.
By the way, people who know about MMOs get really upset when you call WoW the daddy of all MMOs, so I'm really sorry that I said that.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything. You
Yeah.
seem to be on a roll, but,
Yeah.
you know, that's fine.
Also, Jody, Lee and I have been playing Metrocide, a top-down stealth action game from a two-man studio from Melbourne? Sydney, Australia. One
Flat
of those
Earth
places.
Games.
Yes. But first, let's kick this episode off, as usual, with the week in gaming news headlines. Ms. Candi Payne.
Thank you, Razor. The release of GTA 5 on PC has been pushed back again from the 27th of January to the 24th of March. GTA Online should have the long-awaited heist missions incorporated into the console editions by that time.
They keep doing that. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
I wanted to play GTA.
I did too.
Yeah.
You will.
We will, just, a little further away.
Yeah, I guess it's good in that I can forget about the things that annoyed me about the game the first time I played it through.
Or maybe that's their plan.
Yeah.
Like you just wait long enough, people forget.
Yeah, like clean slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's all awesome, everyone's happy again because it's new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good work.
Yep. Microsoft has received the Emmy Award for Television Enhancement Devices. The award recognises the Xbox One's industry-leading television on-demand and media centre capabilities. The award has previously been presented to Apple, TiVo, Roku and even Xbox rival Sony.
See, I didn't actually realise there was an Emmy for that.
No, it's cool though.
Yeah. They just give them out for whatever.
Well, there's all those technical awards that they don't show on TV.
Right.
I guess it's one of those.
Well, yeah, like the actors don't want to have to sit through that.
Yeah, but they're the real heroes of television.
Yeah. Do you think that Master Chief was the one who had to accept the Emmy?
I would have loved it if somebody got up actually
Yeah.
in costume or something.
Who
or
is-
just had the voice.
Who is the closest thing to Microsoft, like Microsoft's mascot, do you think?
Cortana.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's true. It is Cortana. Yes. Sadly.
We have a lot of options.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Lastly, Beamdog, the company behind the excellent HD re-releases of classic RPG series Baldur's Gate, have revealed they're working on a new game in the series. Despite industry rumours that Baldur's Gate 3 was in development, the new game is to serve as a bridging chapter between the first and second games. The new Baldur's Gate will still use the 17-year-old Infinity engine as well as the 26-year-old second edition Dungeons and Dragons rules.
So, that's old. That's a lot of old stuff that's being made new.
Oh, I was like, what do you mean that's old? I thought this was today's news.
It is. It is news.
Panic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
So what's the deal with that? Like, they do a little touch-up to Baldur's Gate, or Baldur's Gate, however you want to pronounce it.
everyone in here is smirking, and that's not nice. Especially you.
Yeah.
I
Imp.
probably wasn't even alive to see these games released.
So they do a little touch-up.
98. Were you alive then?
Yes, my birth year.
There we
Yay!
go. All right, you're as old as Baldur's Gate.
You were
That is-
born in 98?
Yes.
Oh my god.
I know, it's a shame to admit it in this studio.
Yeah, well, amongst the old men.
Hey,
and,
again, enough with the old.
And the men.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And you didn't let me finish. And Candi,
Oh, yeah.
who is still youthful.
I am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Anyway, what I was saying was they do a little touch-up, a little facelift to the game, and then all of a sudden they think they can come in and do a bridging episode. Like, the gall, the audacity on these people.
I think the millions of sales that they made convinced someone that maybe they could get away with doing it.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll buy it. I'll pre-order that tomorrow.
There you go.
There's the internet right there for you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am boycotting this until it comes out when I will buy it.
How dare they extract my money in this way?
On 4ZZZ 102.1 FM, you are listening to Zed Games, Triple Zed's gaming radio show. My name is Reza, joined by Sean, Jody, Candi Payne, and Lee. Now, last week, Lee and I talked about Far Cry 4. We talked about our co-op adventures, riding elephants while storming camps and destroying people, and opening cages with the tigers in them and letting the tigers kill people. And it was a lot of fun, the game and talking about it. So, we have an interview coming up right now with Alex Hutchison, who was the creative leader of that game. And big thanks to Ben O'Brien from 2RRR's Big Head Mode for supplying this interview coming up.
I'm here with Alex Hutchison, the creative director of Far Cry 4. Thanks for coming here.
No problem.
Thanks for coming to Melbourne. You're from Melbourne originally.
Yeah, returning to Melbourne, back to the homeland. So yeah, it's fun to do a show where I grew up.
Will we ever see a Far Cry set in Australia?
Someone was pitching this the other day, and I was about to be dismissive about it, and then I thought, and I realized it's actually kind of fun because it is exotic. It's a bit of a holiday destination, and people at least perceive we have the world's dangerous critters. So I thought, what, actually it might work. But then if you push it a lot, you end up in Mad Max territory. You know what I mean? So there's some interesting things.
That's not a bad thing.
No. Well, it is when they already doing Mad Max things, so you're close to other people. But no, I think I actually think there's some juice in the idea.
So Far Cry 4, it's seeing us in a really different setting to Far Cry 3. How much of the environment was sort of at the front of your minds when thinking how we're going to make this a different flavour to Far Cry 3?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head in the sense that that's almost question number one, is where can we set it that enables new gameplay, that's visually distinct, that's hopefully somewhere people haven't visited before. So it's all those questions at once that we try to figure out a location. And the Himalayas, Tibet, Nepal, all those things together is sort of where we ended up.
Do you see the setting or the location in Far Cry as kind of like the time period in an Assassin's Creed game, as sort of that linchstone that's going to change what the game is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the floor, we'll say that the key character in the game is the location, so we're always looking at place as the launch point for the game, in the same way that we look at, place and the historical time period as the launch point for an AC game.
Now, with Far Cry 3, there was sort of a mixed feelings, I think, sometimes at the cultural representation, and it looks like you're taking that a little more seriously in Far Cry 4. Was that sort of at the front of your mind when you came into Far Cry 4, that you wanted to approach that a little differently, with especially with having a non-white playable character?
Yeah, I know the team from Far Cry 3 had very strong feelings on that themselves, so that was already there when I joined as something they felt very strongly about. And personally, I'm very proud that I've worked on a bunch of games where we've taken Native Americans and used language as almost a language that no one's heard as something we have for a couple of hours. I've worked on games with all kinds of different diversity of lead characters and stuff. So it's I take it seriously. I think it's fun, and it adds a sort of unique taste to the game.
On the subject of diversity, I don't want to drag this back to the mud, but obviously there was a lot of discussion about gender with the Assassin's Creed Unity co-op thing earlier this year. Was that really surprising to Ubisoft? Do you think that, because Ubisoft have a pretty good reputation for diversity. Did that shock you guys that there was that sort of reaction?
No, I think it's a great thing in that people are pushing for more diversity, and I think the only thing that was challenging for the company was that I agree. I think we try very hard to have more diversity, and we work on that a lot. So yeah, you don't always get there, 100% all the time, especially in projects that start 4 or 5 years ago in terms of technology and the ideas that you're building out of. But I feel confident that moving forward and where we're going in the future, that Ubi's in a great place.
And Far Cry 4, I feel like because it's a first-person shooter, you're much more immersed in the world. You're looking at things so much closer up than you are in a third-person game. How does that affect the way you have to approach the world design?
Yeah, I think it's very different. I mean, the third person is actually harder because you can see every contact point, like how the character is standing, where their hands are, where their feet are at all times. Like you can cheat a little bit in first-person games and sort of say, how did he climb up, how did he do it? But then, of course, we created that problem again for ourselves by adding co-op in the open world. So now I can watch you doing it, so we had the worst of both worlds in this one. But yeah, I think it's a more intimate experience in terms of how you approach the protagonist. So in an Assassin's game, you're inhabiting the role of this other character with their history within the Assassin's universe and within this location. For a Far Cry game, it's much more about being you, the player. So you won't hear AJ commenting too much on what's happening. We want the player to react to it. So yeah, I do think it's a little more immersive in that sense.
You touched on it there with Far Cry 4 having the co-op, and Assassin's Creed Unity also has co-op. Is this a push away from that sort of competitive multiplayer? Is this a sort of conscious direction that you think Ubisoft is moving in?
No, I think you treat each game on its merits, and some games suit multiplayer and some don't, and some are easy fits for co-op and some are more difficult. I think the big push, though, is for less modality, in the sense that if you're going to add these features to your game, you need to have them within the core experience. So for us, it was super important to have the co-op be something you could turn on while playing your game. There wasn't this alternate mode, it wasn't irrelevant to your main story progress. It was something that could live with that. So I think we're definitely pushing as a group towards those sorts of ideals. It's hard to get there. But yeah, I think there's a big audience for co-op as much as there is for competitive multiplayer.
Was there anything about adding co-op into Far Cry 4 that surprised you, or that was either that worked better than you thought it would, or perhaps the opposite?
Yeah, I was really surprised by. We had a lot of arguments, myself and Pat Matei, our game director, about how much co-op. Should it be co-op through the story and all of the open world stuff? Should it be a mode? Should it be in the main domain? And in the end, we compromised on the version that we have, and I'm surprised by how much I like it. Because I think when you look at the stats, like in our game, you invite someone in, all the single-player missions turn off, and you play all the open-world content, all the towers and fortresses and outposts and side content and quests and challenges, but you can't play the main story missions. And I think it worked really well because we saw all the data that when we let them play co-op in the missions, they just skipped all the cutscenes and they got lost in the story and they weren't immersed. And when they're in the open world, they're having a laugh, and they're telling the story of their behavior with their friend. And I was surprised that it worked so cleanly. So there's no locked content for solo players, but if you want your friend to come in, as much as you want him to come in, you can. And it works really, really nicely, I think.
Great. Well, thanks for chatting to us, Alex.
Awesome, thanks.
You're listening to Z Games on 4ZZZ. It is 6:20, and we are going to be talking about Metrocide. Is that correct?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Good one.
Well done.
Great.
Yeah.
I've passed the imp test. Hooray.
That was
Now can you remove these chains?
no. That was a B, but a solid B.
Sorry, sir. I'll try harder next time.
Good work. Yeah, you keep that attitude up though, and one day you'll have a microphone of your own.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's a lie.
We are sharing a microphone right now.
Been here for
That
3
is a
years.
lie.
No.
Yeah, but I've got one.
Jerks. Yeah. So, Metrocide.
Yeah, Metrocide. So it's made by a Sydney studio that is a family studio, two brothers. They put out a game, I think last year, 2013, for the iPad called... No, sorry, the year before last.
There you
Damn
go.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're in a new year.
Yeah, keep getting tripped up. Anyway, Towncraft, you might have heard of it. It's a little town building sim. Cute little accessible game. Now, Metrocide, on the other hand, is pretty much the opposite of that. It's
not
violent,
cute,
it's
not little.
brutal, it's hardcore,
And not accessible.
and not accessible.
Yeah.
So how else would you describe it, Lee?
Yeah. So it's a top-down cyberpunk game. It's a throwback, at least aesthetically, to the original Grand Theft Auto game. It has a lot of systems that exist within it that define the actions of all of the other characters that you see roaming around. So you are interacting with a lot of simulation in this game. There's a lot of things happening around you, and it should be something that I would really enjoy, because it's a cyberpunk stealthy assassination game where anything can kind of happen as these mechanisms all play out, and yet I bounced off it and I feel bad because on paper it's my game and it's not. Jody?
Yeah, this should be our jam.
Yeah.
And so it's weird that we had a similar experience of getting into it and then bouncing off it and then trying again and again. So you're this little trench coat killer.
TJ Trench.
Or if you play as a lady, I believe you're Tara Jane Trench.
Nice.
And you have people who hire you to whack randomly generated people around the city. And so you follow them and wait for an opportune moment to shoot them and then collect your money and then use that money to buy better guns and stuff like that. It's got that permadeath mechanic that a lot of indie games have now. So if you screw it up, that's it. You're right back to the start. And I think that's a big part of why I bounced off it, because it takes a long time to get enough money to buy a gun that's not annoying to shoot people with.
Yeah.
And then you die and you're just back to the rubbish starter gun, which is actually really boring to shoot people with. Like, it's a game about being a killer. I want the killing to be a fun bit.
Yep. Yeah. That's absolutely it. In the first thing that you want to do is have a gun that shoots people and have that be fun, and the game doesn't give you that. They've emphasized the wrong side of this, and the things that they have put a lot of effort in don't really impact on your experience that much anyway. Like, there's all this AI behavior at play. Things like characters will, if they're smokers, they might duck out of the building that they're in into an alley, have a cigarette, drop that as trash on the ground, and then go back into the building, which will then cause a cleaning robot to come over and clean up that cigarette. And while it's there, maybe you've already dragged a body in there and it's just going to register that dead body as trash, thus cleaning up a crime scene for you, right?
I like those garbage drones.
Yeah.
They're kind of uppity and they zoom around like going, garbage detected, humans are filthy. And then they fly away.
Yeah.
And then they come back and clean up after you.
Yeah, like, that's really fun. The town is also full of people who are just potentially they're vigilantes, or maybe they're gang members. So if you draw a gun in front of them, they're going to shoot back at you, which then could cause the police drones to come over, or that will, people will recognize you and remember that that's going on. There's all this little stuff that's being simulated and is then playing out, and at the same time it is kind of meaningless to your actual experience of hiding in an alley and waiting for someone to come by so you can shoot them with the worst gun in the world.
Yeah, waiting
Yeah.
is the word that leapt out of that sentence at me, because it's the main thing you do in Metrocide. You follow people and wait for an opportunity to safely murder them without witnesses around, and that takes a long time because there are a lot of randomly generated people wandering around this city, and a lot of them are gang members with guns, and there's also a lot of drones flying overhead. So you just sort of walk along at a steady pace behind people who occasionally pull out a newspaper or smoke a cigarette. Often it's not in the middle of the street rather than in an alley.
Oh my god, that sounds frustrating. If I wanted to walk around slowly and get stuck behind people, I'd just go into the city on lunch break. Like, seriously. Oh my god.
Yeah. And I have played games with a similar thing where you were waiting for the right opportunity, but they do things to make that experience a bit more aesthetically satisfying. But because this has such this drawn back viewpoint, you never really feel like you're a part of the environment. You're watching from quite a distance away, so you don't even get to be drawn into that you're not in that moment of waiting in the alley to shoot that guy. You are observing a tiny ant do that. Even if, and I really dig the aesthetic that they've got going on here, I just don't think that it's suitable for the gameplay that they've got in mind. You know?
Yeah, it's like it was much more suited to a game like Syndicate, where you had that sort of detached and godlike viewpoint from above.
Yeah.
Because you are manipulating a whole bunch of people and brainwashing people, whereas in this, where you're just an individual, having that detached godlike viewpoint removes you from what that individual is up to. If you're actually down there with a guy following someone through the street, and you had that kind of viewpoint where you could potentially lose someone as they went around a corner, there would be tension to following them, and you would be like racing to catch up and then stopping to back off. But in this, not only can you see them around corners and on the other sides of blocks, they don't react to your presence unless you have your gun out. So it doesn't matter how closely you follow someone. They just continue doing whatever they've been programmed to do. You can run around them in circles. I was dancing, I was sliding sideways, I was being a doofus just to see if anyone would react, and no one does. They don't care what you actually do.
Yeah, even with the viewpoint that it has, I think that going back to Syndicate, and even with the original GTA, they were games that when the shit hit the fan, when chaos erupted, it was fun to watch all the tiny people flee. And you do have situations here where chaos does erupt when if the guy spots you when you've got the gun out, because the gun takes like 3 seconds to charge up before it even hits someone, and by then he's gone. So, that happens, and then someone else sees you, and the police are involved, and you think, great, it's about to get exciting, but you get shot once and you're dead, and that's the end of it. Like, chaos means that your experience is over.
And the frustrating thing about that is that you mentioned the gun that takes 3 seconds to charge up.
Yeah.
No one else has that gun.
Yeah.
Except you. So it's not fair. Like, we talked about the permadeath thing. Like, that's really cool, right? But in all the games that utilize that, the systems are fair. You go back and you persevere and you'll get somewhere. Here, the odds are stacked against you, and not in a good way. Yeah, it's just too punishing.
Yeah, it took me a long time to be able to afford the shotgun that actually shoots instantly, and then I killed 2 people with it, and then got shot by a police drone, and then I was just back to the rubbish gun, and that was it. I was just like, I have no desire to get back to that point again, because I will have to slog through this stuff that was tedious and time-consuming and no fun at all.
I had hoped that you would at least be able to permanently unlock it, so that then it becomes a new part of your potential repertoire, but no, you are just back to the start.
Yeah, and frustratingly, there's a tutorial system that tells you, like, push this to move, push this to fire, and every time you die, it goes back to that original tutorial. Instead of sort of maybe giving you the next tutorial for more advanced tips to survive, even on the 5th time you die, instead of giving you advanced tips, it's still telling you, push this to move and push this to shoot. It's a bit... You can turn it off, but it's still a bit frustrating. I just wish the tutorial system was a bit more fine-tuned and more aware of the fact that you're going to be dying all the time, at least in the beginning.
And that you may remember what buttons do what.
There aren't that many buttons at the very least. But, I mean, we all bounced off this game, but I still think that there are people who are going to really get into this. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. And it does keep generating new activities for you to do. But I think it requires a very particular mind to be able to get past these initial frustrations. And for some people, those things, they're not even going to be frustrations. That's part of the pleasure of it, is just how much this game pushes back at you. And I like a lot of games like that. I played the Dark Souls games. I play a lot of punishing things because Jody keeps buying them for me for my birthdays.
I'm a sadist.
Yeah, well, no, yes, exactly. You just inflict punishment games on me. And I enjoy them for whatever reason, because I'm a masochist, I guess. Yeah. But this just doesn't work for me. It doesn't seem like it's stacked up, in an unfair way that's still fun. It seems like they designed all of these intricate little bits and had them play out in a clever way, but they never worked out how to make that into a game that someone would really want to be able to put an extended amount of time into.
Yeah. What I like about games that are open and procedurally generated is that when you fail, it's different the next time, so you're not like being told, well, you sucked at that, do the same thing again. You're being told, you sucked at that, go and do something completely different. But in this, it really is that feeling that you get from games that aren't open and procedurally generated. Even though the names of the people you're killing are random and they might be a smoker or not a smoker, it still feels like you're just doing the exactly the same thing until you get better at it, which is not why I play games like this.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case.
We were talking about Metrocide, which is a PC game you can get through Steam.
Young Sean, you have been wasting your youth on World of Warcraft, on the new expansion, Warlords of Draenor. You could have been out catching butterflies and playing hoop and stick, and instead you immersed yourself in the world of Azeroth. Were you Horde or Alliance?
I'm Alliance.
You're
Did
Alliance.
I answer wrong?
Oh, you did answer wrong, yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, yeah, no, unfortunately I'm allergic to the sun most of the time, so
Yeah.
I just try and keep indoors whenever possible.
Right.
And the good thing is, yeah, I can pretend that I'm outside by exploring a whole new alien world.
Excellent.
And that's good enough for me.
That's a good answer. So, Warlords of Draenor is the 5th expansion for World of Warcraft, and World of Warcraft has celebrated its 10th anniversary as the biggest Western MMO in
Yeah,
the internet world.
I still see people in trade chat every now and then just arguing about who's been there for the longest. So there's obviously a community built around longevity around this game. And they were celebrating the 10th anniversary with some in-game like nostalgia trips, like a particular raid back to the first raid in the game. So a lot of little hints about how long they've been going for, including a documentary that they released around BlizzCon this last year, 2014, called Looking for Group, which I'd highly recommend if you're ever interested in World of Warcraft, because it kind of gives you it's even got enough content there for even the non-World of Warcraft players, and also the hardcore people who want to see a little bit more behind the scenes.
Right. So, I used to play World of Warcraft until I managed to claw my way back to the surface world. And I'm afraid to ever go back because I don't want to have to put that needle back in my arm. So when you volunteered to spend your Christmas holidays in Azeroth, I felt a great sense of relief. Tell me all about it so I can live through your experience.
I feel like I'm assisting some kind of need, some longing that you have for the game.
Yeah, this
He's
is
living vicariously right now is what Lee's doing.
this is my World of Warcraft methadone.
Oh,
Please
great.
continue. Don't interrupt him.
Oh, Jesus.
Get in
The
the
man
shakes.
needs his fix.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think I'm, even just with a few weeks of playing, I'm in a similar situation. But I really did enjoy the past couple of weeks that I've been playing with the game. I've always kind of been sitting on the fringes with World of Warcraft because it's such like a deep game people have been playing for many, many years that it seems at first hard to get into because there's this culture around raiding and endgame, and I didn't know what any of those words meant. But the good thing about this expansion is it really did cater to the people who were like me, sitting on the fringes, kind of interested in the game.
AKA casual noobs.
AKA casual noobs.
Oh,
And
rough.
I will
No.
take that title because I definitely get called that in games sometimes when I stuff up.
Do you step in the fire?
Oh, I trained myself not to.
Good man.
Basically, if you're awake and you have your eyes open, you should just be able to move out of projectiles in the game to not make your life difficult. But instead, that is hard for 95% of the population of the game. Which is where a lot of the anger comes from, which is where a lot of people hear bad things about World of Warcraft players. But no, it's just people getting angry at idiots, which happens in life too.
Tell us about good things. Tell us about Warlords of Draenor. What's this expansion about, young man?
The new expansion kind of follows on from the last expansion, as most of them do. The big bad at the time, Garrosh Hellscream, a big ugly orc, has just travelled back through time into a pivotal point in Warcraft history and opened up a big bad portal for lots of evil orcs to start running through. And so both teams, Alliance and Horde, have teamed up to go through the portal and relive the world of Draenor, which was explored in a kind of destroyed way a couple of expansions ago. So again, for other people, it's more of a nostalgia hit, which is something that they've been trying to get across. The good things, though, it's, like I said, it's good for casuals. It gives an automatic level boost that for one time only the first time you buy the expansion, which is good because it allows people like myself who haven't been keeping up to date to instantly get back into the action.
So it's noob friendly.
It's noob friendly. Thanks for repeating that. Yeah, that's carried through in a lot of the trends in the expansion. Updating to professions, updating to all the little side things. You don't have to start back at level 1 and go kill like mindless minions. You can just get straight into the game, which is one of the best parts. Additionally, they've kind of added a system that is I consider to be relatively malicious because it just gets me to keep coming back to the game again and again, even faster than I normally would. It kind of carries through what they have on Facebook and Farmville of the come back in 20 minutes and your carrots will be ready. That kind of system has been established with the garrison mechanic, which allows you to set up your own little base and customize your buildings and have a lot of fun, but what it ends up is you coming back and checking on your garrison every 5 hours, which I don't do religiously, but...
So these garrisons, is that like an instance or is that like a little town? How do you access this?
It's essentially a little building that you set up within a couple of hours of starting the new expansion, specifically catered to you. But every single person has a garrison, and you level it up as you go through the expansion, unlocking more slots, and you can customize it to your own particular type of play. You can get smaller buildings that help you with your particular class or profession, or you can just get something that helps you in player versus player, or anything like that. You can customize it to an extent.
And I understand that they've also added your own Minion NPCs to the game that you can then send out on quests, right?
Yes, and that's where some of the addictive parts come in. Making sure that my little minions are okay and they've done a good job is is very time consuming. It's one of the things you constantly have to log back in and send them out on more missions, so it never seems like they get a bit of a break.
It's kind of great though that you basically have your own other players, that people who are doing what you might have done if you hadn't reached the high level of having your own garrison. And what kind of benefits do you get from sending them off on quests?
Well, firstly, you're known as the commander to every single NPC in the game, so you're constantly rewarded for doing nothing. Mm-hmm. But sending off your little minions to do housework and eventually, level up and grow like yourself. They hit level 100 just like you do, a lot slower than you, but they still do eventually. You mainly just get small rewards, like leveling them up or getting a little bit of gold, but hopefully towards the end of the expansion, once they're all geared up, they can actually give you items after going out on doing their own smaller versions of raids. They can give you items or potions or whatever may benefit you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. So it's like you're running your own franchise, your own chain store, and they're all like the local...
You do expand into the different zones and set up a Starbucks version of your garrison, which gives you a few upgrades in every single questing zone, which is good.
Yeah. All right. MMOs are prone to being something that gives you a lot of good anecdotes. Tell me one cool, fun thing that you have done in Draenor. Tell me now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
One of the best parts, I think, is the way that the Alliance and the Horde, even though I answered incorrectly, I've picked the wrong side. The quote-unquote good guys versus bad guys.
Man, you should have asked me.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Well. Obviously, his fix has been ruined by the fact that I've said Alliance instead of Horde. But basically, just two warring teams. I play on a player versus player realm, which means at any moment I can be attacked by another player on the opposite team, which happens a lot. And I often get ganged up by groups of 10 or 15 people who really have nothing better to do than make my life miserable, which is a bit sad. But eventually, you do get to have some back and to fight against them, which is quite fun.
So you're in a PvP shard?
Yes.
So you're not 100% noob then?
No, I'm taking a few steps out of noobdom.
He does still sound like a victim, though.
Oh, definitely. I think I've killed one of them once, and that was with assistance from stronger players.
Okay, you're a noob.
I'm still a noob. I apologise.
Yeah, so
but one of the best experiences is because even though you're on a different team, whenever you try and communicate with the other species, it comes up as like a foreign language, an absolutely indecipherable thing. So the good thing is you can kind of communicate in different ways. I was fighting a particularly hard boss by myself, and another player came up from the opposite team, and I thought he was just going to kill me immediately because he looked ferocious enough to do that. But instead he kind of used the emoticon function in the game to point at me and then point at the boss, and then I nodded my head, and then we each helped each other kill the boss, and then he ran away without killing me. So that's really nice. It was a kind of memorable experience because even though we should be killing each other, we didn't.
And see, that's why you picked the good side. Because that's your favourite thing so far.
No, there were some experiences of me accidentally taking an item from someone else that was no benefit to me and could have potentially helped them.
Ooh, Ninja Looter.
Man.
What a dick.
They did introduce something that allows essentially stopping most of that behaviour, that all your loot whenever you go through a dungeon or a raid and you're killing all these hard bosses, it's not based on other players anymore. It's based on specifically on you. So if you get an item, it's most of the time not going to be useless. And there's lots of little things to make sure there's a lot less of useless items coming your way. But still, there is an option to do the old ninja looting system, and I unfortunately ran out of that group with haste when I did that.
One of the things that I have heard, and it's telling that this is all I remembered, is that for logging back in now during the 10th anniversary, you get a pet, right? They reward
Yes.
you. Did you get the pet? Did you get that lava corgi?
I did, and it is quite adorable.
It's adorable.
It really is. There's so what they've done for the 10th anniversary is they've created a buffed up, stronger version of the first raid in the game called Molten Core, which is, if you say to any like hardcore World of Warcraft player, their eyes will kind of glaze over and they'll put on rose-tinted glasses and talk about how good Molten Core was. But they've now like released a specific instant version of that where anyone at max level can play it and have a bit of fun. And they were all running around with their lava corgis and imagining the good old days of yore and all competing about who did this first and best. But it was quite good to kind of, for someone who hasn't been involved for such a long time, to see things that are just as fun.
Lee's showing me photos. It's actually like a flaming corgi.
Yeah, it's a molten corgi.
No,
I get it now.
Like C-O-R-E. Got it.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
clever.
Yeah.
It's cute and a pun.
It actually is cute. I thought it was going to be some like devil dog or something.
That's what you get
You
if
know,
you finish the
flaming.
instance,
Yeah.
which is quite horrific. So they balance it out with the good and the bad. Obviously,
Cute.
the Horde players would choose the ugly thing.
Never.
Yeah.
No response? Okay.
Nah, you're
Moved
not
on.
even going to get me to... Nah, sorry. I'm just looking at this dog now.
Well done. I would encourage other people to maybe get on and look because, you know, we can't describe it on air so well. Lee.
So, Sean, you were saying when we were in the break that you're actually cancelling your account. Why is this?
Right. I feel quite conflicted about this because right now, even I have an instinct to just run back and check on my minions and send them out to do more work. But I know that I've kind of reached a point in the game. I was really excited to play that Molten Core 10th anniversary thing, and once I finished it, once I got to the point where I could play it, and I eventually finished it, I logged back into the game, and I'm assuming you've seen the South Park World of Warcraft episode, where they team up for an entire episode and grind and become fat. That's how long they've been doing it for. And finally, they kill this boss that they've been trying to defeat for hours and days and weeks. And they say to each other, well, what do we do now? We just play the game. And then they just go on doing tiny things, and then the episode ends. And that's exactly how I felt. I logged back into my garrison, and I'm like, I feel pointless now. I've got no motivation. I've got no goal. So I did a few missions that were basically harder versions of what I've already done. But all I was doing was just getting slightly higher numbers, and I was using these slightly higher numbers to defeat slightly stronger enemies, but it was exactly the same thing that I did before. There's a few, benefits to continuing with it and persevering with the harder difficulties, as in the bosses are slightly harder and have a few more mechanics that make things slightly more of a pain. But ultimately, I just didn't see the need to come back and play the same old thing again and again. But there's still something about it that makes me want to, and I see exactly why you quit, Lee, because I need to stop it now before it really starts. For some people, it's very attractive. For some people, the idea of continuing and getting stronger and being the first guild on the realm to defeat the big boss or to do anything like that. For people who've been involved with the game for a long time, who've been playing it for 10 years, it means a lot to be the first person or to finally defeat this boss we've been trying to defeat for years in the lore. But for me, kind of an outsider, I've dug enough into it to experience it, and I think that's as far as I'm going to go.
Yeah. See, when I was playing, they didn't have a lot of the social tools that they have in place now, where you can just join a random group to do a high-end raid. So you had to, I was part of a guild, and then I ended up kind of by default having to be in charge of that. So I was managing this group of 30 other people to help them to play the high-end stuff. And while that was compelling, it was also driving me mad, because it's hard enough organizing a handful of people to do anything, let alone to make sure that they're all the best that they can be at a dumb video game where everyone's already watched a video showing them how to defeat the boss, and everyone's got all the other tools they need, and then you're like, all right, now everyone's gathering at this time on Wednesday night because we're going to progress further into this dungeon. It was, the metagame there was really interesting, but it was also awful and aggravating, and someone would, we had one guy who was just an old man who was one of our wizards, and he was just not dexterous enough.
Was he in real life? Did he have a long beard and dress like Dumbledore?
I think he did have a long beard, yeah. But he was just not dexterous enough to do some of the stuff that the raid bosses required, and that was it. We couldn't do that stuff with him and all of that. That's the worst when you're the guy who has to work out who goes along to the dungeon. So that
You just have to leave him behind.
yeah.
Just to die.
Yeah, well,
Did you just abandon him in the wilderness?
no, I didn't abandon him in the wilderness,
So it's
but
more like you just picked him last for football.
yeah. And then eventually that just got to me, and I just went, no, none of this. And I handed all the responsibility over to someone else, and then I ran away from the game. And then within a week, I suddenly felt like there was a lot more sunlight in the world, and there were so many more hours in the day, and I could do anything that I wanted. It was great, and I think you might find the same thing.
Yes, I'm already experiencing like some freshness of the air, and the sun is already looking bright to me. But in comparison to you experienced it when there was a lot less of the group finding and social element. That's something that I really kind of appreciate, because for someone who doesn't, like myself, who doesn't have that much time to let alone go find the group, but the dungeons themselves take a lot longer. Like if you're with bad people.
Yeah.
So the good thing about the mechanics nowadays is I can sit where I can be wherever I like, and I can press a button and join a queue and randomly join a bunch of people who statistically have defeated that dungeon before me. So they know how to do it, and they don't even say hi to me when I log in, and they run around, they do it, they kill it real fast, and they don't even say bye, and they leave, and they go on off on their merry way.
That sounds like an awful experience for a massive multiplayer online game.
Exactly. It's even though I'm playing with other people, I feel scared to ask questions sometimes. Like, how do I defeat this one? Because I sound like a massive noob, and noobs are hated all the time.
Yeah.
So, on the rare occasion where I do get a nice group, it feels rare, and it feels like something that I should treasure. And then eventually, at the end of the dungeon, we all, like, leave.
Well, they also probably can't offer too much advice if they're just an equally big bunch of noobs as well. Like, that's probably why they're so nice, because they're just as scared, being like, this is the first time I've joined a team, I don't know.
Because I joined so late into the expansion that by the time I was, like, reaching max level, because I wasn't, like, speed running the beginning of the game like some people were, I was completely outmatched. So many people had already defeated the boss that we were trying, like, for a long time to defeat, and they were running their second character to be at the same level as me. So there were a few dodgy experiences where I was just logging in. I was loading the screen for the dungeon, and I'd already been kicked out of the group and sent back to what I was doing. So there is a bit of an unforgiving element there, even though you're in a more social zone.
That's disappointing. I mean, that's the reason why I've never gone back as well, because I was there when the game didn't have the tools in place, so you actually had to go out and socialize and make friends, and you found yourself like stuck in certain sections of people, and because you were there in the same place, you started talking, and that's how this happened. And I still have friends, like people that I meet regularly that I met in game because they were good at healing. But it seems like to make it easier for people to casually get into it, which I think is still, a good idea, they've taken out that social element that kept me going back for so long.
Yeah, they've made the world smaller over the past couple of expansions in the way that, sure, there's more zones, but there's not really that much interaction, or at least forced interaction with other people. Some people have been nice and given me free gear and helped me out and done all that kind of stuff, but really, they're the minority. And it's just a few things like that in this expansion that have hinted that. The fact that the garrison, the place where you spend 95% of your time, instead of spending your time in a capital city with 40 other people or 1,000 other people, depending on how busy it was, and actually being in the same place and socializing, you're off in your own little place doing your own little thing, and occasionally meeting up when you want something else from the other person.
Yeah, that seems like it goes against the whole spirit of the thing. Like, that sounds like a single-player game.
For some people, it's streamlining and making the game easier. For others, like myself, it's making it harder to get into because there's less people aspect. People were talking about all this kind of stuff in guild chat, but I could never get into it because I was already a little bit far behind, and it seemed like they were a little bit unwilling to help me unless I was going to guarantee my time, join the raid schedule, meet up every single week so they could get their monies back out of helping me.
So this is an awkward recommendation then.
That's the thing. I hate to slander it because it's the best expansion that World of Warcraft has to date. And even though I didn't really experience the rest, I've heard that from other people and I'm repeating it. No, I do genuinely feel like this is the best version of the game that I've played. But at the same time, it's the same game and you have to know this thing going into it.
We have been talking about World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, which you can get now for your PC. Alright, this has been Z Games, and we are pretty much out of here. Thank you very much for your attention. We'll be back next week at the same time. All right, we'll catch you guys next week.